At 80 years old, Danny Trejo stands in his small valley gym at 5 in the morning, gripping dumbbells with hands that once trembled too violently to hold a glass of water. The same hands that spent 11 years behind bars. The same hands that signed 4 divorce papers. The same hands that nearly killed him with needles filled with heroin. But what you don't know is that Danny Trejo died twice before he ever became famous. Once in a prison riot that should have ended with a death sentence, and once from a disease that doctors said would destroy him from the inside out. This is not a story about an actor who got lucky. This is a story about a man who crawled out of hell 3 separate times, and the third time nearly broke him completely. Because the final battle wasn't fought in prison. It wasn't fought on the streets. It was fought in his own body while cameras were rolling and millions watched, completely unaware that the legend they loved was dying right in front of them. Danny Trejo was born on May 16th, 1944 in Echo Park, Los Angeles. Before he turned 2, his father's violent crime forced the family to flee California. They scattered across Texas like refugees, sleeping in borrowed rooms where the walls were thin and the nights were colder than the silence between his parents. When they returned to Los Angeles, normalcy didn't exist. At 4 years old, Danny was shipped to his grandmother's overcrowded house where his grandfather's fists spoke louder than words. The only person who showed him attention was his uncle Gilbert, just 6 years older, but charismatic and magnetic in ways that seemed like salvation to a starving child. Gilbert became the best and worst thing in his life. By age 8, Gilbert introduced him to heroin. By 10, Danny was arrested for the first time. By 12, he was already drowning in addiction. The streets of Echo Park, Temple Street, Mission Park weren't neighborhoods. They were war zones where survival meant becoming the thing everyone feared. Danny became unpredictable, volatile, dangerous, the crazy one people avoided. Prison became inevitable. In the mid-1960s, after a drug deal with undercover agents, Danny received nearly 10 years. He moved through Folsom, Soledad, and finally San Quentin, the darkest corner of California's prison system. Inside San Quentin, he became the lightweight and welterweight boxing champion. His fists earned respect. But during a riot in 1968, one thrown rock changed everything. He was dragged into solitary confinement, placed in the section for men awaiting death row. In that suffocating darkness, with nothing but his own breath and the crushing weight of every mistake pressing against his chest, Danny Trejo whispered his first real prayer, a desperate plea for life, for transformation, for any kind of mercy. Nobody testified against him. The charges dropped. When he walked out in 1969, the sunlight felt alien. He had nothing, no money, no prospects, no reason anyone should believe in him. But something had shifted inside, something he couldn't name yet, but felt like the faintest pulse of hope. For the next 16 years, Danny Trejo disappeared from the world that knew him as a criminal. He threw himself into recovery programs, showed up every single night. He took jobs nobody wanted, landscaping, construction, cleaning, work that didn't promise anything except dignity. He became a drug counselor, sitting with people whose eyes carried the same death he once saw in his own mirror. He wasn't preaching, he was present. And presence, he learned, was the most powerful thing a broken person could offer another. Then came 1985. The phone rang. A young man from his recovery group was on a film set trembling on the edge of relapse. Desperate, he called Danny. Danny walked onto the set of Runaway Train with no ambitions, no dreams of stardom, just the face life carved from survival, scars that told stories, eyes that had seen the abyss. Edward Bunker, a writer on the film who had been in San Quentin with Danny, froze when he saw him. He asked if Danny still boxed. One question, one nod, one screen test, in a boxing ring. The director cast him immediately. No audition, no resume, just raw, undeniable truth. But Hollywood doesn't hand out miracles for free. For years, Danny worked 14 to 16-hour days. Some years he appeared in over 20 films. He took roles others rejected. Convicts, enforcers, nameless tough guys in the shadows. He was often paid so little that he sometimes handed checks back to struggling crew members. Directors began to notice something beneath the scars. Precision, discipline, humanity, burning beneath intensity. His silence spoke louder than dialogue. His presence shifted entire scenes without a word. By the mid-1990s, Hollywood could no longer ignore him. In Heat, his gaze trembled like thunder beneath every frame. In Desperado, he transformed Navajas into an icon without speaking. From dusk till dawn, Con Air. His face burned into global consciousness. Then Spy Kids revealed something nobody expected. Warmth. Children across the world saw not danger, but kindness. The man with the scarred face became Uncle Machete to millions of kids. In 2010, Robert Rodriguez wrote Machete specifically for him. At 66 years old, Danny Trejo became the star, the hero, the name carrying an entire franchise. Machete earned over $44 million and spawned a sequel. He went from earning $50 a day as an extra to commanding six-figure paychecks. His net worth climbed to an estimated $8 to $10 million. He accumulated over 400 acting credits, one of the highest totals in Hollywood history. But the universe wasn't finished testing him. In the early 2000s, Danny Trejo was in his 60s, finally experiencing the success he fought half a century to earn. Then doctors delivered a sentence colder than any prison term: chronic hepatitis C. The virus he contracted during his drug-using years had been silently destroying his liver for decades. Without treatment, it would kill him slowly, invisibly, ruthlessly. The treatment interferon became his cruelest opponent. Week after week of injections that hollowed out his strength. His hands shook so violently, he dropped glasses. His skin thinned. Food tasted like metal. Sleep abandoned him. Cold sweats drenched him at 3 in the morning. One morning, he gripped the bathroom sink, trembling, whispering to himself to just make it through one more hour. And still, he worked. The world never saw him clutching the edge of tables, between takes, willing his legs not to buckle. They saw the warrior on screen. Only the mirror saw the man being torn apart. His children noticed. Gilbert saw the tremor in his fingers. Danielle watched him lose his breath, walking upstairs. In 2010, after months that felt like a lifetime, doctors told him the virus was gone, but victory left scars. His liver carried permanent damage. His immune system remained fragile. Chronic pain from old injuries and a car accident greeted him every morning. Then came 2023. At nearly 80 years old, Danny Trejo opened a letter demanding over $2 million in back taxes, years of misunderstood deductions, bad advice. The simple truth that a man who fought to stay alive never learned how to navigate tax codes. He did what honorable men do. He faced the truth. No excuses, no running. He sold one of his homes and paid nearly $400,000 immediately. He reorganized his businesses, surrounded himself with trustworthy experts, restructured everything. Then came July 4th, 2024. Danny Trejo, at 80 years old, was riding in a classic car during a neighborhood parade when young men threw water balloons at him. One shouted that they contained acid. At 80, with decades of trauma stitched into his memory, that word hit like lightning. Instinct pulled him from the car. In the chaos, he was splashed, shoved, surrounded. When reporters asked about it later, he didn't rage. He didn't demand justice. He simply said he was sad it happened and wished it hadn't. 80 years old, once feared on the streets, now choosing peace over pride. Today, Danny Trejo lives in a modest Los Angeles home. No mansion, no extravagance, just a sunlit living room, a small garage gym, and a backyard where he drinks coffee at sunrise. His walls hold framed photos of his children. Gilbert behind a camera, Danielle on stage, Danny Boy at family gatherings. On a shelf sit, handmade gifts from school days he missed. A paper frame, a chipped ceramic cup, a Father's Day card with uneven handwriting. These silent relics cut deeper than any scar on his body. Now he shows up, fully, fiercely. Birthdays, premieres, quiet dinners, doctor visits, phone calls. He attends everything he's invited to, sometimes arriving early, sometimes lingering after everyone leaves. His charitable work exceeds 6 figures over the years. Food programs, youth, outreach, addiction recovery. His restaurants often feed the hungry for free. His time is spent visiting recovery centers, prisons, hospitals, places that remind him who he was and who he refuses to become again. 5 days a week, he walks into that small valley gym and lifts iron with hands that once shook too violently to function. He trains not to stay young, but to stay alive, to stay grateful, to stay moving toward the light. At 80 years old, Danny Trejo carries pain the way others carry memories. His back locks some mornings. Sleep eludes him some nights. But every dawn he rises. Danny Trejo's story is not about an actor who made it in Hollywood. It's about a man who died 3 times and crawled back each time with nothing but will. He's not extraordinary because he became famous. He's extraordinary because when life gave him every reason to quit, prison, addiction, divorce, disease, financial ruin, public humiliation, he kept choosing to rise. His greatest role isn't Machete. It isn't any character he's played. His greatest role is the man he fought 50 years to become. A man who proves that redemption isn't a destination. It's a choice renewed every single day, especially on the days when it feels impossible. Your past does not define you. Your choices do. Even the most broken beginnings can lead to extraordinary endings when you refuse to give up on yourself. If Danny Trejo's story moved you, if it reminded you that it's never too late to change your life, hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you stories like this every week. Stories of people who refused to let their past define their future. Drop a comment below and tell us what resonated most with you about Danny's journey. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Because if Danny can climb out of San Quentin and build a legacy at 80 years old, you can face whatever battle is in front of you right now. We'll see you in the next one.